Hey everyone, welcome back to Blow Up. Today we're diving into 5 unfiltered, wild stories, from an entitled Karen cutting the parking line at the mall with her own guards, to birthday party drama, a sister blaming my gray hairs on our mother, a pug breeding disaster, and even a family cancer scare turned into a saga of entitled antics. Get ready for twists, laughs, and jaw-dropping moments. Let's jump right in. Story 1. Karen tries to cut the parking line before the mall even opens. Brings her own guards. So, this happened yesterday and I'm still trying to process the sheer audacity of it all while also smug at the result. It's Ramadan and like most malls here, they open at 3 p.m. on weekdays and stay open until 3 a.m. Plenty of time for everyone to shop, eat, and do whatever they need. But apparently that wasn't good enough for one ultra-entitled Karen who thought she was above the rules. I got to the mall around 2:30 p.m. to grab a good parking spot before the pre-iftar rush to catch some shopping for my wife. A few other cars had already started forming a queue outside the parking entrance, all of us patiently waiting for security to open the gates at 3 p.m. sharp. Everything was normal, until Her Royal Highness Karen rolled up in her big black pickup truck with 2 private security guards in tow. She pulls up right next to the security gate, completely ignoring the queue, rolls down her window and tells the mall security, "Open the gate now. I have things to do." The guard politely tells her that the mall isn't open yet and that she needs to queue like everyone else. But of course Karen doesn't take no for an answer. "Karen, do you know who I am? Do you see my guards? I don't wait in lines." She then literally waves at her guards, who step out with their guns like they're about to escort her to the throne room, and they start demanding that security let her through. The mall security guys, to their credit, stood their ground. "Security, ma'am, no one enters before 3 p.m. Please queue like everyone else." Karen scoffs and pulls out her phone to record, demanding to speak to the manager. At this point, the rest of us in line are just watching in anger and disbelief, further amplified due to lack of energy and sheer heat. A few minutes later, the mall manager shows up, looking visibly annoyed. He walks right up to Karen's car and in the most CEO voice imaginable tells her, "Ma'am, your guards do not dictate mall policy. If you want to enter, you wait like everyone else. Now take your guards and move to the back of the line." "Karen, this is unacceptable. I'll be calling my husband and reporting you." "Manager, you can report me after you move your car." Absolute legend. The best part? Karen actually shut up and sulked off to the back of the line, her guards looking completely useless. Moral of the story? Even if you bring your own goons, mall security still doesn't care. Happy Ramadan, everyone. Don't be like Karen. Have respect for people. Can you believe that? Have you ever seen someone try to cut the line with an entourage? If you were in that parking lot, what would you have done? Drop your most outrageous entitlement stories in the comments. Story 2. I'm hosting a birthday party for my kid and once again a parent has demanded I pick them up and drop them off. As the title says, I'm hosting a birthday party and I let my daughter invite some new friends she's made this year. Yesterday I get a text stating, "My daughter and I would love to attend, and since I don't drive, the only way we can attend is if you drive me and my daughter to and from the party. Please let me know because my daughter is very excited to be able to attend." This is literally the first conversation I had with this woman. I don't know her from a hole in the ground. I told this parent I'd be too busy hosting to drive anyone. She seemed really upset in her reply. We live in a farming town that is spread out over a large area. For all I know, she could be on the other side of the township and it could take a very long time to drive them. I also have to pick up the cake and snacks day of the event. I also have to set up and decorate the rental hall the day of the party and tear it down. The rental hall is cheap, but that means I'm responsible for all the cleaning, so that means I'll be there for a long time. This isn't even the first time I've been asked to pick up and drop off another family for a birthday party I was hosting. At least the last time it was a cousin-in-law and not a complete stranger to me. I hope there isn't any social fallout for my daughter, but I already told my kid to blame me because I don't mind taking the blame. Seriously, can you imagine being roped into an Uber service for a party you barely know the person from? How would you handle such an absurd request? Let me know your crazy party mishaps in the comments. Story 3. My entitled sister blamed my having gray hairs on our mother, but she was the real source of my stress. A few years ago my sister got really drunk and had some bizarre idea that any gray hairs I had were a result from stress caused by our mother. When in truth that's not really the case at all, since my sister is the one who stresses me out more. It was about 3 years ago when this happened. She asked me to drive her to a bar and be her designated driver. She would buy me dinner whenever she asked this of me. So I didn't mind so much. What I did mind was she always wanted to stay way later than the agreed upon time of going home. If she said 10 o'clock, she'd push it to 1 a.m., and then act like I was a killjoy for making her go home. She had no concept of being on someone else's time. While at the bar the day this started, she got wasted. And then she went on a sudden rant about our mother for no reason. And she said just the worst things. She started crying and literally told me she was just waiting for our mother to die, and then claimed no one will be playing Ozzy at her funeral. I have no idea what prompted this. But my sister was literally always looking for something to make our mother the villain about, because she can't function without someone to blame. But the things she said that night were bad enough that our mother may have disowned her if she had been there to hear it. Anyway, during that rant she suddenly focused on the fact I have some gray hairs. And started saying our mother was responsible for it. But she was so wasted that it didn't really matter what I said. I did point out my age at the time and said it was natural with age. But it didn't do anything. Then a few months later she had a big fight with her boyfriend. And then came crying to me. She somehow ended up bringing up the past situation before. And I ended up reminding her of the things she'd said. And that my gray hair wasn't caused by our mother. She suddenly looked embittered and crossed her arms while saying, "Then what was it?" I got angry and told her that I was 36. Just age. She then pointed out she's older than me and has no gray hairs. For the record, we're half siblings. So a lot of different genetics. But either way, no matter what I said, she still refused to accept she was wrong. And frankly, I don't care about my hair slowly turning gray. I'd rather have gray hair than no hair. Baldness is actually one of my biggest worries. Later she got really drunk again and went on a sobbing rant about me having gray hairs because of our mother again. No matter what I said, she just wouldn't let it go. In a later fight we had, I confronted her about the things she said. And I ended up unloading on her about how she was my real source of stress. She accepted no blame for her actions, and tried to give me one of her soft talk speeches about how she felt attacked. Which was code for, "I'm just gonna forget the points you made so I can tell myself I'm right." My sister looked for any excuse she could find to make our mother the villain, no matter how minuscule. The fact she had to reach out so far as to blame my gray hairs on our mother was just grasping at straws. And then she went on to hypocritically rant about our stepdad getting a DUI in a casino parking lot when she got a DUI herself years ago, driving like a mad woman in a car with bald tires while totally wasted. She totaled that car, by the way. Ever had a sibling twist every little thing to make someone else look bad? What would you say if your family drama was turned into a blame game about gray hairs? Share your most absurd family feuds in the comments. Story 4, my entitled sister thought she could make a living breeding pugs. And she let her kids live in the filth because of her dog Hoarding. My sister for years believed she could make a living breeding pugs. She used to have a breeding pair she named after sibling characters, ironically. The first time the female got pregnant, I had to help with the birth. And that pug had like 10 puppies. It was months of dealing with a stinky puppy pen, and my nephews and I having to take care of them while my sister wasn't home. She managed to find homes for all but one of the puppies. And the final one she refused to sell because he was too cute. I knew it. I knew from the start that she'd want to keep one of the puppies for herself. She denied it. But then she did. Just to try and make it look like she wasn't keeping the puppy because she didn't want to sell him, she claimed she was giving him to her sons and he'd be their dog. That was complete and utter BS, and we all knew it. That third pug was a menace. And it only made all 3 pugs one terrible group of troublemakers. They urinated on the floor so much they rusted out the vents. And my nephews didn't really take care of the third pug as my sister claimed they were supposed to as their dog. So she threatened she'd give away the third pug many times. But didn't, and would cry if called out on it because he's too cute. After like 2 years of that, it finally was too much for her and she gave the third pug away. She couldn't sell him like the prior puppies because he was full grown and neutered. Somehow the mother pug didn't have another pregnancy that took until my sister was evicted from the family property. We were kinda thankful for that. I ended up taking care of these pugs as much as my nephews while my sister wasn't home. The first pug that became the papa dog wasn't so bad. But the female that became the mama was a nightmare for a while. That dog developed some twisted need to shit exclusively on my sister's bed. My sister once came home to, I kid you not, 9 piles of poop from that one pug on her bed. I'd see this dog come running into the bedroom after going outside, jump on the bed, give you a look like she doesn't care what you think, and she would drop a deuce wherever she felt like. Which would usually be on the bed as soon as you weren't watching her. And this dog was punished for it many times. But she refused to stop. It got to the point where we had to keep her caged and the bedroom door perpetually closed. But she kept finding a way in if she was let out of the cage. Eventually it got to the point where I was taking zero BS from this dog. I decided one day she was not going to go back inside until she pooped. And the dog really did not like that. Especially since it was cold outside and the ground was wet. I watched as she would sniff around. Make a motion like she was going to take a dump, then would just whine while looking around and move on. She did this a few times. Then looked over at my sister's trailer and suddenly started running towards it all of a sudden with a look of complete glee on her face like she was thinking, "I wanna shit there." I stopped the dog and forced her to come back. She looked at me like I was a killjoy and just sat down to pout and stare at me. I told the dog I had all day and she finally got bored enough to go back to sniffing around. She tried to make a break for the trailer 2 more times. Finally, after like 45 minutes, she couldn't hold it in anymore and took a dump. But I could tell she had more in her. So I kept waiting around and she finally took another dump because I wasn't taking her back to the trailer. The march back was like a walk of shame for her because she knew she'd lost. And put up no fuss when I put her back in her cage. I kept up that routine until eventually she finally stopped trying to poop on the bed. Eventually my sister's at the time boyfriend brought home a puppy he got for free. This puppy was adorable, but grew into an absolute monster bigger than my Akbash dog. He was huge and pissed and shit on the floor all the time, especially right near my middle nephew's bed. When put on his tether outside, he would bark constantly. On days I had migraines, this dog drove me nuts. And he made it impossible for anyone to sleep at times. Especially my father. This dog was so strong that he broke his chain tether numerous times. They couldn't use rope because he'd chew through it. He chewed everything. The 5th-wheel trailer my sister was living in on our property at the time she bought brand new. And that dog just destroyed it even worse than the Pugs did. That dog also destroyed plenty of stuff belonging to my nephews. Clothes, shoes, toys. Anything it could get in its mouth. I had to fix my middle nephew's shelves with duct tape. We told my sister many times that she had to get rid of this dog. Even gave her an ultimatum more than once. But she still refused. She finally sold the dog to someone who had one of the same breed, and had wanted another one, and treated us like we'd ruined her life by making her get rid of this dog she could not handle. Soon after my ex-BL took his kids away from there and refused to bring them back. Not long after my sister was given the boot, and she was out by January. When my sister got an eviction notice from the family property in 2023, she moved in with her only remaining friend, and started breeding her pugs again. And just like last time, she kept the cutest one. Then her best friend kicked her out and my sister got a new boyfriend who was also her drug dealer and moved in with him. Then her abusive boyfriend kicked her out and left her in a broken-down RV trailer on the side of the road, and then he left her with a car that barely ran. By then she'd burned like 98% of the bridges she'd had because she's an entitled narcissist. She spent 2 days living with her boyfriend's sister, and let her pugs piss and shit all over the bedroom floor, and didn't clean up any of it, so the lady kicked her out. I had to clean it all up when I came and got her and her stuff. And then I had to spend a day following her numerous places with all her stuff in the back of my truck while she was trying to find someone to take her in. Most of the people she tried to get in touch with wouldn't return her calls or messages. And I was the only one walking her damn dogs. She just sat in her car on her phone the entire time. And then she tried to force me to take her dogs home with me. But I couldn't because our parents are my landlords and they said no. My sister flipped out on me for it. She claimed our parents were allowing me to bring her stuff home in my truck for the time being, and her dogs were a part of her stuff. I still told her no and she lost her mind. She spent the night in a car full of junk with 3 pugs. She didn't even have food for the dogs. I had to buy her some because she was broke. The next day our mother got her a motel room for the night, and she was completely ungrateful for it. Then she went right back to her abusive boyfriend the next day. I just dumped her stuff off in his front yard and left. My sister finally had to surrender the mom and dad pugs to a rescue. But she kept the puppy. I'd previously told her she needed to give away all the dogs because she couldn't care for them if she was homeless. She said she'd think about giving up the 2-parent pugs, but she refused to part with the puppy. I told her that trying to raise a puppy on the streets wouldn't be good for the dog, and she ranted that dogs were great for the mental health of homeless people, and that she needed him. My sister was previously in touch with a pug rescue, but stopped talking to them. I looked this rescue up and gave them a call. And they were worried for the safety of the pugs. So worried that they called me back to ask for or tell me updates on the situation. Eventually they called me and said my sister had surrendered the 2-parent dogs to them, and they gave her $100 each for them. I don't know if that was a normal thing to do, or if my sister extorted money for the dogs since they were purebreds and a breeding pair. They didn't clarify. But both dogs were highly adoptable, they told me, and likely found homes fairly quickly, if not even maybe sent to the same home. My sister also had a tabby cat she couldn't take care of and begged I take him. Not only did I take in the cat, I refused to return him to her later. He loves it here and he was raised here. When I brought him home, he started purring the second I pulled in the driveway. And I mean aggressively purring. He couldn't see where we were because he was in his carrier, but he knew by smell. As soon as I let him out of the carrier, he was running around the yard like, "I'm home." My sister previously took him to live in a drug den with her abusive boyfriend, and would take him right back into that sort of life if I'd let her. I recently had him chipped and registered in my name, just to keep her from taking him away. She's an animal hoarder. She'll keep dogs and cats and then just won't clean up after them. And if she has the money or the room, she'll get more. Over 20 years ago she was living in an old manufactured home with 20 cats. She was letting piss and shit all over the place. I had to clean it all up for her many times because she wouldn't do anything. And when called out on it, she'd cry and say the cats were like her babies. I tell you, you don't know nothing about cleaning cat poop till you've had to use a shovel. Those cats were just pooping in top of more poop. It was like shoveling moist clay. At least I clean up after my cats. Recently my sister showed up wanting her cat back and I kicked her off the property. She threatened to report me but hasn't. Probably because we know she's doing meth and crack, and doesn't want cops snooping around. When she wasn't looking, I saw the cat run away from her and hide under my house. And normally he's friendly with everybody. Then he started following me and meowing like mad. He did not want to go with her. Wow, talk about a pug pandemonium. From a filthy puppy pen to a cat that knows where it truly belongs. Have you ever dealt with pet hoarding chaos? What's the craziest animal story you've witnessed? Share your wildest pet tales in the comments. Story 5. The Saga of My Brother's Cancer Scare and the Big Bad Grandma. Hello. I'm new here and have many stories to share about my grandma. She's a cunt, to put it simply. I have many stories to share about her, some my own and some my mom's. She was the definition of MIL from hell, but that's not here or there. But I have a story that is making my blood boil. She will now be called entitled Grandma, because I refuse to acknowledge her as my flesh and blood. Recently my older brother, 22, developed a strange lump in his neck. This had been a month-long ordeal, so I will begin at the beginning. Upon receiving this news, my brother's first reaction was just to call my mother and dad, allowing them to spread the news if they wanted to. My mom told her mom so they could send him food, clothes, money, etc. My EG didn't become aware of this until about a week or so, mostly because she wasn't going to do shit but pester, after the initial acknowledgement of the possibility of cancer. She proceeded to call my brother and yell at him for not telling her first and how he's so selfish for keeping this diagnosis from her, a nurse. I find this stupid because she's a CNA, no insults to CNAs, you guys do wonderful work, and my family is a family of nurses and doctors. Hell, my brother is going to medical school himself. Not to mention that her being a nurse does not entitle her to no information about something going on with us. We didn't want to tell extended family yet because we weren't sure if it was cancerous or a cyst. We didn't want to create unnecessary worry. Throughout the month, she had been calling and texting him non-stop, and when he didn't respond she would blow up my phone and my other brother's phone. I don't live with my brother. Admittedly, I don't have much contact with him, so I don't know why she'd called my 45 times within 2 days. I had to block her number so I could get through school without my phone constantly buzzing in my pocket. She finally stopped when my dad stepped in and forced her to stop. We hadn't heard from her much during that time. At least so I thought. We had to go over to where my dad lives so he could have it removed. Insurance problems were the reason we couldn't stay in town. It was just supposed to be my dad, my mom, and me. I was mostly there for my mom because I didn't want her to be alone. When we let family know, she decided to call my brother up and demanded he go to fucking Mayo Rochester for a second opinion. We don't even have the first opinion. All we know is that the lump has to be taken out. It hasn't even been biopsied or sent to pathology yet. And she kept insulting the hospital we were going to and that Rochester is so much closer. It is not, in fact, it's farther. We were going to fucking Belland or Amplify by Belland. This made my dad angry because he works at the hospital and it's fucking Belland. My dad calls her and tells her to shut the fuck up. Silence. We were hoping that would be it. It wasn't. The initial trip was going to be a 3.5 days trip. Leave Tuesday night to the hospital and leave Friday afternoon. It was just going to be us 4. However, in true EG fashion, she decided to butt into the situation once more. She announces on fucking Facebook that she will be going to her grandbaby's surgery to be there for him and that they should pray for her, not him. We were not aware she was coming until that announcement, a day before we had to leave. We sucked things up and just try to keep things nice and stress-free for my brother. When we arrived, it was smooth at first. The first night we got dinner and discussed plans for the next day. My brother had a CT at 9:15 and then a consult for surgery at 11:30. Afterwards we were going to wander around the city and enjoy ourselves. I was originally just going to meet my stepmom there, and we were going to go shopping and get some things for post-surgery. However, EG met us at the hospital. At the first appointment, she began to demand to take my mom's spot in the appointment room, saying she had more of a right in that room because she knew more than my mom. My mother? The mother of my brother. My brother put his foot down before my mom could say anything in return to her, and that shut her up a bit. She pouted in the corner while my brother and my parents went into the appointment with him. The appointment took about an hour or so. My stepmom and I began getting ready to go shopping for a bit, catching up and deciding where to go. EG steps in and demands us to stay or to invite her along. We deny, saying that we wanted it to just be us because I haven't seen my stepmom in a while, and then the conversation begins to change for the worse. She began to call me a disappointment for not thinking of my grandmother and how I'm such an ungrateful brat. She would kill to spend another moment with her grandmother, and you never know. She may just drop dead. And then she started demanding why I didn't defend her and why I blocked her. I'm going to be honest. After years of abuse from this hag and the burnout of high school and the fact that it was 9 in the fucking morning, I was not in a good mood. I replied in a short tone, "If you drop dead right now, I couldn't care less," and turned on my heel with my stepmom and went shopping. After the CT, we decided to go out as a family for a little bit and spend some time together until the next appointment. EG takes this opportunity to take control. She begins to direct us to places she wants to go, places she thinks my brother would like, and she keeps asking my brother to buy things for her. After all, this situation is just as hard on her as it is on my brother. I keep holding my tongue, simply guiding my brother away. My stepmom and I double-team EG whenever she starts pestering my brother over the smallest things, like why she wasn't allowed in the appointment. We separate them quickly and end the conversation from the beginning. Finally, it comes to the second appointment and we go. Instead of shopping, I decided to spend the appointment time doing schoolwork since I was missing a few days, not to mention I was just so emotionally strained from trying to parent a fucking boomer. For example, began to pester me again. She was a bit nicer this time, asking me about school, etc. I began talking to her about my plans for my senior year and plans after college. She then began to try and tell me what I should do with my life. I should follow in my father's footsteps. I should become a respiratory therapist, or better yet, become a CNA like her. I said no and that I planned to become either a psychologist or a physical therapist, and that was final. She pouts a bit and then starts telling me about classes I should take for my senior year and that my senior year would be too hard for me. She says that sometimes I'm a bit slow, and may not be able to handle calculus and physics at the same time. I bit my tongue a bit as I just ignored her. She then got angry at me for ignoring her. I honestly wish I had some witty things to say to her, but all I could muster was, "This is why no one wants you around." That shut her up for a little while. Finally lunchtime came around and we went out. My brother's choice, of course. EG began to complain about the choice of restaurant and how Cancun was trashy and the food wasn't good. When we arrived, she then began to try and tell us what to order. We ignored her, of course. However, when she heard what I ordered, enchiladas, she began on her wonderful tirade. She began to talk to me about how I should watch my cholesterol and my weight. She then said, "You know, a fat PT is a bad PT." I stared at her a bit before I simply moved seats, essentially leaving her alone at the end of the table. When the waiter came over to get our orders, she then tried to change my order into a salad, saying I didn't need all those carbs. "I'm in a bulk right now, I want my fucking carbs." My mom stepped in and simply told her to shut the fuck up. EG was most likely going to protest, but my dad gave her the glare of doom and she shut up. She remained quiet, pouting, until it was time to go back to the hotels and sleep. EG began to pester me again to stay with her at the hotel. I wasn't going to, I didn't plan on it, and I did not want my mom alone. I set my foot down, saying I wasn't going anywhere with her. She proceeded to grab my arm and tried to drag me away, saying I was a brat and should listen to my elders. I simply pulled my arms out and called her a fucking hag that should learn when someone wants her to go away. After that I went back to the hotel and went to bed. The next day we learned that she went home because she knows when she's not wanted, doubtful, and sent all of us a long string of texts telling us how she was so disappointed in all of us for not respecting her and being so mean. She was so stressed with the possibility of my brother having cancer and she just wanted to spend this time with her family. I ignored her. The rest of the trip went well and my brother's surgery went well. Luckily, it was benign, and now he has a wicked scar from where his lymph node was removed. And I still have EG blocked. E.g. decides to make my brother's cancer scare about her and inflicting psychological damage on all of us. If you guys want more stories of E.g., let me know because I have a ton. I do apologize for any formatting or misspellings. I'm dyslexic. Now that is a saga for the ages. When a health scare turns into an E.g. takeover, you just have to laugh and vent. How would you handle a family member who makes everything about themselves even in the worst times? Share your most over-the-top family drama in the comments. Today we witnessed wild, unfiltered stories of entitlement, from Karen trying to cut the parking line with her own guards to birthday party carpool demands, crazy sibling blame games, pug breeding chaos, and even a cancer scare hijacked by an entitled grandma. Each tale reminds us to stand up to absurdity and to laugh at the madness around us. If these stories made you laugh, cringe, or shake your head in disbelief, hit that like button, subscribe for more raw, real stories, and share your own experiences in the comments. Stay strong, stay real, and always be ready for the unexpected. Thanks for watching and see you next time.